you build that relationship by being valuable to them, which is giving them news.
Yeah.
Whether that benefits you or not.
You've made it through. I can make it through too. If you can do it, I can do it.
So when we think of anyone not liking us, it is in our DNA to be scared of that and worry about that.
Welcome to CEO Conversations, the private practice podcast. I'm your host, Brandy Mabra. This is your one-stop shop to learn the business side of your practice on a deeper level. On this show, we empower you to own your CEO status to scale your practice for growth, sustainability, and profit. Listen in as we talk about how to market your practice to gain more visibility, hire, build, and engage your ride or die dream team, create streamlined operations, and make financial decisions as a CEO. It's time to show up as a confident leader to create a practice and life you love. Let's get started. Hello. Welcome to another episode of CEO Conversations, the private practice podcast. I am so excited for this episode because we have the amazing Jennifer Moxley, who's here with us today as our guest. So, Jennifer, thank you so much for being here today. And I'm excited for us to learn all about the power of storytelling and media. And so why don't you take a minute to tell folks about you?
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I feel like I'm back in business coaching classes with you. I refuse to cry like I did then. All of the life lessons. It's good to see you again. And thank you for having me. So I don't even know where to begin. You know, we get to a place in life where we have so much we've done and accomplished. Where do we begin? But I think one particular part of my background that is very valuable is my ability to help women be real good at telling their story. Yeah. I don't practice what I always preach, but I own Sunshine Media Network. I've been an entrepreneur for 13 years, and I founded a nonprofit called She Dreams in Color Foundation. We fund mental health therapy for women. And both of those came from me seeing gaps in the system. I climbed through the local newspaper to TV, and I was a one-man band, which means I shot video, edited video, and was on camera. And I just kind of got burned out of that, and I started looking for some gaps in storytelling, in media, in video. And I didn't see a lot of women videographers that were taken seriously. And being a one-man band, you know, it was kind of like always made fun of, like, you're a reporter that has to shoot your own content. And so I started looking into how I could start a business, freelance in video production and television, and it worked. I made it. There's been a lot of pivots, a lot of reinvention, as is always with women and being an entrepreneur. But I'm here today, and I'm happy to be there.
Yeah, I just love your mission, and I love even the branch off with She Dreams in Color. And so it takes me back to when we first initially met, and you said, I'm a storyteller, and that's what I am. I'm a storyteller, and I don't know how to necessarily tell what you're saying, like tell my story. And I feel like that is the sentiment for so many people is I can tell, I can teach, but when it comes to me, there's always like your own mindset shifts that you have to go through, your own journey that you're trying to overcome or come to terms with, and everything else too. So I'm curious to know, when people are out there trying to tell their story, what is the mindset that they need to be able to just embrace it and to put it out there? What do you see?
Let's start with the most obvious. It's painful.
Yeah.
The worst assignment as a reporter is the first story you write that you've joined the newspaper or you've joined the TV station. You have to write your own story. Oh, wow. It's the worst assignment. You freeze and wonder, well, what do people want to know about me? What do I share? What part? Should I tell them I like pancakes and I can't cook a grilled cheese sandwich? You know? So I think it's critical to just address the issue that nobody likes to do it. And I've worked with presidential candidates, professional athletes, Hollywood stars. I've done their media junkets. I've been behind the scenes when they're getting their hair and makeup done and when they're practicing. And very few people like to talk about themselves and like the attention on themselves. But they do it because they have to. When we are entrepreneurs, it's so easy to take the easy route out and not do that part of the work because nobody's holding us accountable. We don't have to tell our story because nobody cares if you don't. Mm-hmm. When we introduce ourselves at networking events, if we do a bad job introducing ourselves and making connections, we're the only one who suffers, kind of. The people in the room suffer because they're not able to connect with you, but really you're the only one that walks away with damage. Mm-hmm. So there's no accountability to telling your story effectively, and it's easier to not because it's real uncomfortable. So I try to work with women, predominantly women, to create a framework where they have a list of who they are. I call it your Batman tool belt.
Yeah.
You have your tools on your tool belt and you go into a space and you pull out your tool, and then off of that tool is a Swiss Army knife of tools. These are identifiers about who you are. And then off of each tool, stories that relate to those identifiers. Mm-hmm. So when I meet you and I know that you like luxury, I can say, oh my God, my son lives in LA and I've been to that hotel. Did you see this? And so I want people to envision, growing your brand, growing your business, growing yourself, your community is like an octopus, and you just want to wrap tentacles around folks. And politicians do this so beautifully. They meet someone, they're in a state, they're in a forum, and they have connection points that you see yourself in them. The second point, that was a long first point,
no,
but the
I love
second
it.
point.
I'm just like, I wish I had a pen because I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to write notes.
I hope you're recording.
Yes, we are recording.
The second point, I will say, particularly for us, externalize the goal. Mm-hmm. This is not about you getting fans. This is not about you making money, although it should be. This is not about you bragging. This is about you helping other women build their community. Yeah. Because if I see that you're not ashamed to go on vacation and spend money, mm-hmm. I have a connection point with you. Mm-hmm. If I see that you like nice things, you give me permission to expect that. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to say for your audience was the biggest takeaway from my time with you. Yeah. My welcome gift as your client showed me Brandy has expectations, and I should too. Mm-hmm. And that has permeated professional and personal in my experience. And that came directly from a gesture of you.
Aww, yeah.
So we give women permission when we set the bar high.
Yeah. I love that because I think a lot of times people sit and think my story doesn't matter. Or if I show this side to myself, it's going to be misinterpreted. Or it's going to almost damage my reputation compared to empower my reputation and actually give people permission to think bigger or to like, oh, I'm going through that and you're okay. You've made it through. I can make it through too. If you can do it, I can do it, right? And not to feel shameful of it. Or just to say, I'm not alone. I'm not by myself. I thought that I was alone. I thought that I was by myself. And so there's so many different powers that stories can have. So for the person who is sitting there and you talked about this, like the picture that comes to mind is like a ninja, like, with the knives, like, like, you know what I mean? And like, how do they make the connection for what to put into their tool belt? Like, are there certain categories of stories? Like, tell us more about that.
I have a system, it's called an inverted pyramid, and you design one for every space that you want in identity. Women are phenomenal at this because we are mothers, which dress differently than our birthday party girls, which dress differently than our daughter at church with our parents' anniversary party that have, so we understand identifying in different ways. So let's say I'm going to create my inverted pyramid for networking and growing my business. I want to write down 5 to 7 things that identify me as an entrepreneur, a creative entrepreneur. Okay. So I'm in video production. So do I want to pitch my video production services in 2024, in this time of the year? Because every business fluctuates. So if I do, all right, we'll put that at the top. I'm Jennifer Moxley, founder of Sunshine Media Network. I'm in video production. If I were to leave it there, I now have to use what's called theory of mind to wonder what people will assume that means based on what I look like. Our packaging matters. So immediately, what if people told me, well, one is really inappropriate. I must work in an adult industry. I don't know where that comes from, but that's what people say. Probably because I'm not going to speculate. The second one is I must do weddings. I do neither. So my story off of video to give people a framework, the bumpers in the bowling alley, and to raise the bar at the level I want for my budget because women are also undervalued. I'm Jennifer Moxley, founder of Sunshine Media Network. I'm in video and TV production. I was a videographer for the New York Giants crew. So I raised the bar. Now, when you sit down in your bedroom in your pajamas and you write it out, it's easier to think, what will that sound like? What will that look like? What will people think? What's the next question? The next question I get would be, oh, I can't afford you. So then I immediately follow up with, but my mission is to uplift women and minority experts and entrepreneurs. So I work with small businesses. I work with nonprofits. I work with corporate clients so I can afford to work with my small business, my real community. So now I'm like, do I got y'all? Are you still with me? When we think about that in a non-pressure situation, we just pull that tool out when we're standing up sweating in front of everybody like, I'm Jennifer. So I want to work on helping people do speeches and speaking. I'm a speaker coach. So that might be the second thing I say. I have a few clients who've done TEDx talks. I have clients that have done Hollywood movie junkets, for Netflix and Hulu. I coach people. One of my clients did a Hall of Fame speech. So I'm crafting the story long before I get in front of you. And then one of my favorite hacks, if you don't do this, one of my favorite hacks is, well, what do you do? No, well, tell me what you do. And then I find how my business envelops your business. So you work with private practice CEOs. Oh, perfect. I help private practice CEOs really fine-tune their niche and their story. And then all the other stuff I've done doesn't matter because I know what you might be looking for.
Yeah, I love that. What I hear is, this is who I am. This is my business. This is my years of expertise. So this is what qualifies me to be able to even do the work that I'm doing. This is who I serve. And then you're going into like just the different stories or trying to grasp, like, so how does that resonate with you? And then you make it about the other person.
I love your structure. I might steal it.
No, I literally just listening to you. I'm like, oh yeah.
Okay, I love this. So write down Brandy's structure, but you should always, this is my favorite thing, give a fact and a flair. Okay. So, I work with women and minority experts and entrepreneurs. And this happened, you see how my body language softened and kind of got into a vibe because I'm getting into my story. Now you're in memory. I've already planned the story I'm going to tell attached to this fact, but now I'm just in memory. I worked with a woman, Sucharita, I cannot remember her last name now, but she came into my studio and did an interview with MSNBC. She's like one of the leading consumer buying experts in the country, and I'm not even doing her justice, but she's amazing. And she said, how can I do this more? I'm only here because the guy who usually does it is sick. And I thought, it's really weird. There's a lot of the same type of person in the chair. I can use my expertise to help women and minorities say yes, break those barriers, and have the confidence to know that they belong there based on their experience and how to like get into that newsroom to get asked. So that's my why leading into that fact. So I've got my fact and my flair.
So when we're thinking about the entrepreneur, and specifically even with the private practice owner, what are some things if they're saying, I want to be on the Today Show or I want to be on MSNBC? And I know a lot of our clients, they've been able to get on certain news channels locally and different things too. But I also know that they have aspirations of doing more. So when we're thinking about what do you need, or even from a storytelling point, What is your
Where do
gems?
you start?
Yeah, what do you do? What do you do?
So many pieces of advice. Please get something to write with.
Mhm.
First and foremost, identify who you are. So
Yeah.
your 5 to 7 selling points. Who are you? What makes you special?
Mhm.
Your story is what they care about because a talking head is a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
Number 2, be available. Reporters need someone to be available just like that. And I've had many people say, I don't have time. I'm not ready. I don't have makeup on. You're missing out. So
Mhm.
be available. Make yourself available to them. They're doing you the favor. And people take this attitude of, oh, I'm only available on Monday. I'm sorry. When did you become
Right.
the prize here? Don't underestimate local news.
Mhm.
Don't underestimate podcasts with 200 followers.
Mhm.
Don't underestimate any media.
Yeah.
And to prove that, go on a small little podcast and say something very controversial and see
Mhm.
how fast you blow up and go viral, right?
Mhm.
So if we know that can happen, then we shouldn't underestimate any medium. Also, news trickles up.
Yeah.
And in my career, I've seen it go from 6 months to 24 hours.
Mhm.
So if someone were to do a podcast and speak on something that pops, it'll be from here to CNN within 24 hours. And that's a fact because I've worked all sides of it. The other thing is say something.
Mhm.
If you are being generic and 1 in a million, then nobody is going to care about what you have to say. You're not
Yeah.
leaving an impression. But with that comes the fear of being wrong,
Mhm.
of someone calling you out, of someone not liking you, of someone calling you a know-it-all,
Mhm.
a bragger, all the things that us women have been called in person by boyfriends. Good
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Who do you think you are? That was
Mhm.
one of my favorite things my own mother told me. So
Mhm.
I overcome that obstacle today, even now. But if you aren't really standing for something, you're never going to be of value
Yeah.
to the media. So say something and base that off of your lived experience.
Mhm.
I love local news because you can do a local news interview
Mhm.
and it will go to all the affiliates across the country now because newsrooms have been cut so much and now are absorbed by corporate conglomerates.
Mhm.
They have a lot of copy paste going on. So your little interview in your
Mhm.
city can be in 15 stations across the country.
Wow.
So it's worth it, but you have to say something different. And you are the expert.
Yep.
You're in your world 24 hours a day. You're the expert of what's going on. So the easiest way would be to localize a national story. What's going on nationally? The election is huge. How is the election affecting you? How is your state in that election affecting you, your business, your clients, if you're a private practice owner?
Mhm.
So put yourself out there and brand yourself as that expert and don't be afraid of it.
Mhm.
And they'll call you. They'll say, I can't do it today, but I'll be there next week. And when they cancel, because they will,
Mhm.
email them and say, I hope you got dinner. I hope you got home in a good amount of time. Don't be mad and entitled
Yeah.
because being in the media is a very difficult job and undervalued and overworked.
Mhm.
And they are doing a great service to uplift our business owners.
Yeah.
So I frequently will reverse engineer local folks on national news,
Mhm.
and it can take some time. But relationships with people in the media, serving them what they need when they need it, pays off tenfold.
Mhm.
And a local person who was on the Good Morning America couch, I traced it all the way back, and it was 6 years. He had self-published a book that, was on Amazon, like many people do, and they feel like they're yelling into the void. And I was like, how did he get there? How did he get there? And I found out the producer from Good Morning America had worked with him at a small NPR station
Wow.
in Seattle 6 years prior. And that was one of those, I need someone to do an interview. I have no clout. Yeah, I'll do it. I'm not too good for you.
Mhm.
And they just kept that relationship going.
Yeah. So, how do you build a relationship with media?
Be valuable to them
Mhm.
the same way we build relationships with anybody. Even in business, I love a lot of business owners, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to meet with you for coffee unless we're doing business. I don't have time.
Yeah.
And reporters are the same way. I'll send you a couple emails. So how are you valuable to a reporter? Send them ideas. And that can even be a quick email, a text message. Most of them have their email on their website. Go to their Twitter page. They have their email on their Twitter page. They need 2 or 3 story ideas every single day. That is a beast because when you are that reporter, you're in your story of the day. You don't have time. I don't even know what happened in any other part of the city. So when I email reporters, I'll either say, oh, breaking news, I saw a fire, just want to make sure you knew it. I don't care if they email me back and thank me. That's not why I'm doing it. And then I'll say, I was scammed by XYZ Bank. If you need an interview, I'm available this weekend. Be available on weekends. Be available on holidays because they're still working. And you build that relationship by being valuable to them, which is giving them news. Whether that benefits you or not, it's definitely a great way to, and you don't have to be a snitch. You don't have to be like, I saw this going, but you can say, I know the election's going on. If you need non-election news, I've noticed a trend in, businesses reducing their EAP coverage for health insurance, for sessions from 20 to 6. To us, it's our everyday life. To a reporter, they're like, oh my God, what? And then remember this rule, much like a table with 3 legs. TV reporters need 3 solid legs. Information, you're the expert, you give them that information. Interview, you have to be available and talk to them. And if you can get a client that it affects, even sexier. But we know that that is very difficult, but at least make yourself available for the interview. And video. So what video do we offer? They probably need to come to your office. They probably need to meet you at a park and y'all walk in the park, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to think visually for them. You are doing a lot of the heavy lifting for the reporter, but if it's add water story, they get a lunch break. They get to use the bathroom that day at work. This is real. I did it for years. And they get to go home to their family or their pets on time. So giving them an add water story is very appealing.
Treat them like a person.
Please.
Right? Like treat them like a person, build the relationship like you would anybody else, and then be creative and help them out. And the other thing I heard you say is maybe the stories that you're telling them about don't necessarily have to do with you or your business, but it could just help them out as a person. And when you build that relationship, if you want to then maybe be more strategic and say, oh yeah, by the way, the insurance or the EAP and speaking to who maybe your clientele would be, then, oh yeah, I remember you talked to me, you told me about the fire over on 5th Street and, oh, you want to come and talk about your business? Absolutely. I'll come to you. And so because you're helping build that relationship and giving them nuggets outside of thinking about yourself.
You would never self-promote. It would always be, this is newsworthy. Even if you send them 3 ideas a month that do relate directly to your business, it's not in a self-promotion sense. It's in a newsworthy sense.
Got it.
We're going into the holidays, the myth of holiday depression, because depression is all year long. Oh, wow. That's a new way of thinking about it, right? And yes, please treat them as a person. And that also means every reporter is not your person. Newsrooms typically are predominantly white, predominantly privileged backgrounds because it takes a lot to get there. And it also takes a lot to live on the salary they pay. So I was one of the few people in my newsroom who had children. And I'll never forget one newsroom I worked in, they called me and they said, have you ever heard of hand, foot, and mouth disease? I was like, yes. And they're like, we're leading with it at 5. There was an outbreak at a daycare. I'm like, literally get more people with children in your newsroom.
Yeah.
This is a weekly occurrence.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the public tends to put the media reporters on a pedestal of intelligence that isn't always warranted because they are just in the grind. You are the expert, and find the reporter that gets you, that gets your industry. And if you're talking about mental health, you're lucky because there are a lot of reporters that get mental health. If you're talking about, I remember when they were banning cigarettes, weren't many people in a newsroom advocating for cigarettes because it was not just kind of part of the culture of people who worked in the news business. So it's really interesting how they're not intentionally biased, but you can see the disconnect of understanding.
Yeah.
And so if you are in an industry that struggles to connect with the media because it's not fully understood, keep chipping away at that and find the reporters that are, because we have blogs and podcasts and YouTube channels, and you have your own media in your own hand.
Yeah.
Tell your own stories. And we saw an influx of mommy bloggers become news influencers in the early 2000s because they were the experts and they had the platform, and news trickles up.
I love it. So if there's some folks who are listening and they're saying, well, I want to be like on the couch. I want to be able to get that picture, or I want to be able to post that. Like, what do you have any tips for those folks who want to get to the couch?
Yes. What are you going to do when you get on the couch? What's next? Because how do you capture that experience in that moment for your business and your growth? Because also the beast of feeding content, they will just pick you up, put you on there, and spit you out. And then you leverage nothing from it. So be thinking about the strategy after you have that Good Morning America interview. Is your website prepared to take the hits? Are your orders stocked up? Does your website look like you belong there? Because that call to action will come in and you need to be ready. And then once you're ready for the back end of that interview, you start getting mentally ready, which is basically manifesting. But too many people, when I set them up for an interview locally and they're like, oh, I have to get my hair done. Honey, you better be ready and prioritize it now, because it's not one of those like when it happens things. Live your life that way now. Carry yourself that way now.
Yeah, be prepared for what you're asking for is what I hear. The other thing is I hear, because I think about Shark Tank. One of the things that they talk about Shark Tank is the people who don't even get the deal. Some folks aren't prepared because their end all be all is to get an investment or to get like the funding, right? And then they don't get the funding, but they're not prepared for all the business because of all the exposure, all the visibility that they got from being on the show for what you're saying, like the orders and things. So I think about like your schedule. I think about, are you prepared? Do you have an admin who can actually answer the phone, or do you have the person who can help with the influx of folks that could come on that could happen from that exposure too? So.
This is why being viral can be exhausting. And I worked with people who were viral in 2016, when they got on YouTube and made a video, and it took a month to finally pop off, and then it did. And now they're not really further ahead, and their content's online and they're pigeonholed in that space. And so being viral can kind of be scary because it was unexpected and unplanned, even though you may have wished for it. So for sure, you want to be prepared for the aftermath, but also Shark Tank folks, I've worked with a couple of Shark Tank folks, and if you don't get the deal, that is not a loss. If you do an interview with local news and it's not exactly what you wanted, that is not a loss. I really come from the background of no publicity is bad publicity. And we see many times people hold on so much to expectation that they're not able to kind of go with the outcomes that could still benefit them greatly.
Just the ecosystem that you have and the visibility. And so there's going to be, if you get enough exposure, there's always going to be folks who hate it, people who love it. But that's actually a sign that you're doing the work, because if you can get to the haters, great job. Be happy about it. Be excited about it. And then the other thing that I think of is like a great brand attracts and a great brand repels. And so just thinking through just some of the things that you've said, talking about the flair, talking about have an opinion, don't be boring. What is your message? What are you trying to do in the world? And then be prepared for when people actually find you and be prepared for the success that you're going to have, especially if you continue to go after it.
The vision boarding, the manifesting, the praying, the putting yourself in those feelings, you should tap into the fear feelings that show up. Many times showing up, being present, taking up space, provokes so many internal, deeply rooted fears, including what if I make a lot of money? I'll be a mean rich person. I'll be a greedy rich person. That's such a embedded fear in so many of us, like myself, who grew up in poverty. I don't want to be a mean rich person. If you don't work on that now, then you'll lose it all. Like winning the lottery and then losing it, right? It's the same kind of story. You won the lottery, you got on Good Morning America, but you were not prepared and you self-sabotaged. In the preparation, you will evolve in such a really beautiful way. And all the things, all the media that you get along the way, the little podcasts, the little interviews, the networking events, you introduced yourself and you pretended that you were talking to Oprah in the garden. You are winning the whole way there. And I just saw a quote from Cat Williams this morning. He said, you should welcome haters.
Yeah.
If you don't, if anybody wants to be a hater here, I'm welcoming you. And that is so terrifying because in a primal sense, human beings want community for survival. Women want community for thriving and safety. So when we think of anyone not liking us, it is in our DNA to be scared of that and worry about that. But truly, we don't build if we don't have a niche and if we don't start small.
Yeah, I love that because it's practice. That's what I hear you saying is you're practicing for where you're going and you're practicing for the tomorrow. And I think about even the fact of us sitting here in some of my stories, like I had a stutter growing up and, and so certain times where I get nervous, sometimes my stutter will come out. Sometimes I say things backwards, but what I've done is I've incorporated that as part of my brand. So if someone hears me say a saying that is completely wonky, well, you know what? I've already let the cat out of the bag. And so that makes me more comfortable as I'm talking, as I'm speaking, and, just the times where I do maybe get a little bit shooken up and my stutter is coming out. So
that is such a brave thing to do. And you open the door for other people to not be ashamed of completely normal life experiences. And it's that tentacle that you connect with someone, where you're like, wow, thank you for being a real person. Because I came in here hiding a little bit, intimidated by you, intimidated by your brand and who you are and your success. And now I can breathe a little bit more because you've allowed me to be a little bit more human. And you've shared something with me I feel privy to. And I'm giving you all kinds of grace and actually mental applause of like, wow, she really overcame that. I wonder how, what is it like now? And I can't notice. There are for sure people, and we saw this with President Biden, who will do a whole thing about it, make a thing about it and make it nasty. You don't want to be around them anyway.
Right.
We wouldn't associate with them anyway. We would kind of be like, that's a you problem, I think of a lot of examples of women who have shared their domestic violence experience or sexual assault trauma, their, survival of suicide attempt, or just so many layers of things we experience as human beings. And my heart just opens up when someone shares and is vulnerable and lets us in just a little bit. And I believe culturally we are coming back to authenticity and being real. And I love that we are so trained on our phones. And I'm speaking of Gen X and younger. I'm sorry, not to be ageist, but we are trained on our phones so much that we can kind of see through people on television and on video. We see through fake because we've lived on our phones most of our lives now. And just like we're getting those AI detectors and you see Gen Z saying, how do they not know this is AI, right? So we have a BS detector built in. So when you are authentic and you do share it from a heart place, people are attached to that and they love that.
Yeah. I love that so much because I think even from a provider's perspective, I'm telling you how to live your life, I'm telling you how to take care of yourself, I'm telling you what medication to take, I'm telling you, I'm being a safety for you when it comes to your care. Sometimes it's what you're saying, like I've been able to survive this, or kind of humanizes them as a person where they'll pay closer attention to what they're saying, because they're saying this, or because they're telling me to take this medication, or because, they're speaking it from a place of real life and compared to a place of you just know everything because of your credential.
Therapists are a very unique case study. And I know you know this. My sister's a therapist and I deal with it with her and my therapy clients. Therapists have that mentality of a mom, a parent.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you I got drunk and missed fifth period in senior
Mm-hmm.
year because I don't want you to drink alcohol as a student, as a
Yeah.
child, right? But I need to tell you that I know, but I can't tell you what I did, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know how parents kind of struggle with how much do we share about our real life with our
Mm-hmm.
children, but also tell them that we've lived it.
Yeah.
Therapists are the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Therapists have to maintain a level of credibility
Mm-hmm.
and authority-ish
Mm-hmm.
over their clients, while also finding ways to get the tentacles around them.
Mm-hmm.
I do think therapists should do this on a case-by-case basis with their clients. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think it's a one-size-fits-all, just like with our children.
Yeah.
I had one kid I could never tell that to. He would
Mm-hmm.
never let me forget it. And I have another kid I could share everything with. And he's
Yeah.
kind of like my therapist today. He's 26 and I'll tell him I'm having a bad day, but then the other son, I'm more like, do as I say, not
Mm-hmm.
as I do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So case-by-case basis for therapists. The other thing is you don't have to put all your cards on the table at one time.
Yep.
When you share about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It took you time to share that you grew up with a stutter.
Yeah.
It took you time to get comfortable with that. And that is the whole point of you owning your story and being the best person to tell your story. When are you ready? When is it time?
Mm-hmm.
And now how does it benefit you? Because something we did see probably in the 2000s when cell phones had video cameras in them, people were just sharing everything.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing was off limits. I'm going to show you everything and you'll love me. And people kind of got used up and thrown away, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to make sure that we own those elements and we divvy them out as it benefits us.
Mm-hmm.
So a good example, I was a teen mom and I did not lean into that until just recently because I feel like, okay, I made it.
Mm-hmm.
They're 30 and 26.
Mm-hmm.
I have a business. I've made it. I can now say I'm a teen mom because the stigma attached to that is not as severe as it was for me and my professional career for so long.
Yeah. So being intentional about when you're telling your story. The other thing that I hear is see your story through. So waiting until things develop because you don't really know what's on the other side of your journey or what's going to be the true sense of purpose. And so when you're talking to your story, you can talk from a place of what you're saying. I was a teen mom. Fast forward to today. I have a successful business. My son is 30. The other one's 26. I survived. Yay. Now let me give you all the nuggets of wisdom that I was, because I've gotten to the other side of it, that I've learned and be able to share with you.
That also helps when we're parenting, right?
Yeah.
When I was in high school or when I was your age, it can help a little bit to have that distance because you still have authority and credibility because of the distance and the track record that you have. So therapists can use that. I don't know many therapists who would feel comfortable. There are some, and I applaud them. But most that I've talked to would not feel comfortable saying, I suffer from depression and I understand what you're going through. And that's why I'm helping you. Because then you start getting a little scared, like, do you know how to drive the car? Because I don't know how to drive a stick shift, right? So you don't want to kind of be in that place, like, I'm in this with you, bud. No.
Yeah.
I want someone who knows a little bit more. But if that is your story, then that is also your story. Because for me, in my perimenopausal stage, I want to go through it with women going through it. Older women who've been through it and had different experiences with medication and doctors and data online. I want to meet other women. Where are you? You didn't sleep last night? Me either. So we all are on different journeys. So as that therapist chooses what they tell and what they don't tell, think about what client base you would be attracting with that.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. And I think about, because I know we're talking about therapists too, but even just for the other types of providers, so like some of the physicians or different specialties and, all of the things, is the exact same idea. Like, what's the intention? What's the purpose? Why are you telling the story? How's it going to resonate? And is there something that somebody can truly learn from it by you sharing it? Or are you just feeling obligated to share that, hell yeah, I am in it too? So So thank you so much, Jennifer. Like, this has been so good, and I hope that people are taking notes. I hope that you're writing things down. And so for the folks after this who are like, oh my God, Jennifer's amazing, which I know they will, like, where can they find you?
Sunshine Media Network is my business, and I love working with entrepreneurs, helping them tell their stories, show up more. And She Dreams in Color Foundation is the nonprofit I started from my own journey of mental health healing, childhood trauma, the out-of-pocket expenses. So I'm trying to normalize therapy and mental health needs and help raise money for marginalized women to receive care that can really change their lives and their families' lives.
Yeah, it's an amazing organization too. I donate to it, guys, so make sure that you go and donate as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you,
Thank
Jennifer,
you, Brandy.
so much. Thank you. And
Thank
I
you.
will see everyone next time. Bye. Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the episode and it empowers you as the CEO of your practice. If you enjoyed the podcast, please make sure you subscribe, share the message, and leave a review. If you want more information and support in growing and scaling your practice, click the link in the show notes to take advantage of our free resources or apply to work with me directly. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.